Good evening, everybody.
Kavod Harav, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Okay, so we're going to Het. I think this is the last one in the chapter. So it says here, Katab Shibule Leket, right? It says in this book, Ben Ir Shaya Ba Besfina or Bederech. So let's say, right, you have somebody who lives in a town, unwalled town, and he was in a ship or he was traveling. Velo haya imo Megillah, he doesn't have a Megillah. Nizdamna lo betetvav. And then, right, all of a sudden he finds one on the 15th. Right, so what's the problem with that? The problem is that he's supposed to be reading on the 14th, right? He's not in a walled city. He's not a walled city dweller. So he says, Kore oto betetvav. So you should read it on the 15th anyway. That's what he says. Better late than never, as they say, right? That's the Rabbeinu Yaakov hevi raya lidvarav. So it says Rabbeinu Yaakov brought proof for his words. Minagarsina b'Yushalmi, because it says in Yerushalmi, Kol Kodesh Kasher Megillah. Because it says there, as we said yesterday, that the whole month you can read the Megillah, according to Yerushalmi. Ad Tetvav, but it has to be until the 16th, right? I'm sorry, the 15th, right? The 15th. So you see, right, that the 15th is the last day. So why not, let's read on the 15th, right? Even though you're not a walled city dweller, but it is the last day, and theoretically for everybody, whatever, as a general rule. So it's as if there's somebody who has a doubt. Ikra belo bracha. So he says he should read without a blessing. So in other words, you don't recite the blessing because that's not really the right day for you. You should have been reading on the 14th, right? So therefore, since you're reading on the 15th, don't do a blessing because it may be a blessing in vain, right? Something like that. So that's what we don't want, right? So you read it without a blessing. Okay. So then he goes on, right? In the tour, he says, right? That we read the Megillah twice, one time at night, and then we do it again in the daytime. So that means, right, for you guys that have to drive in to hear the Megillah, whatever, right? So you got to drive in twice, right? I'm just walking across the street over here in New York, right? So I'm not really driving around, whatever. So but you have to, if you live in a place where the distances are larger, like most of America, so then you just have to, to drive there twice, once at night and once in the daytime, right? That's what you got to do. Okay. So so don't skimp on that, right? Don't say, well, I'll just do it once, and I'll be okay. You won't. It's not okay. You have to do it twice. You can't, right? Once is not enough, right? So it says in the Bet Yosef regarding that, he brings a source. Memrad Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, right? It's over there in the Gemara. This rabbi says, "Beper Kama," in the first parak of the Megillah, "Ukvar ketaba Rabbeinu b'siman taf reish pen zay." Right, so it says that the Torah already wrote this in a different chapter. So right, that's it. So we're all set, right? Basically, that you got to do it twice. And the truth is, right, that the original decree was to do it only in the daytime. When they first decreed this, and then they also added the night as well. That's what happened, right? In a later generation, the rabbis added the night. So, so it's not exactly the same thing. The day one is the more important one because that was the original decree. But then the rabbis also added at night. Okay. So then we go on, right? It says here, quoting the tour, "V'shel laila zmana kol halayla, v'shel yom zmana kol yom." So what are the time, right? What are the times for this, for the reading? So he says the night reading you can do all night, right? From dusk to dawn, right? Basically, right? You got all night. And in the daytime, right, the reading you can do all day, right? That's pretty much a story. What's all day? Right from dawn to right to dusk. Basically, that's the idea. Okay, so there's no time limit. That's what we're trying to say, right? All day, all night. Okay. Perek, where is this brought down, right? What's the source for this? Says Bet Yosef, Perek Sheni, it's in the second Perek of Megillah. There's a Mishnah there. Tanan, Kol Hayom Kasher Lekiat Megillah, right? You can read the Megillah all day. זה הכלל, דבר שמצוותו ביום, כשר כל היום. So it says the general rule is that whatever you have to do in the daytime can be done anytime in the daytime. Okay. ודבר שמצוותו בלילה, anything which is at night, כשר כל הלילה, can be done all night, right? Sometimes, by the way, the rabbis decree, that even though it's all night, but the rabbis decree to do it, like at a certain time frame, until like, let's say, until midnight, like we have with Kriyat Shema, that's what they decreed, that you have to do until midnight, lechatchila. But here, they didn't decree that because, as it is, right, the Megillah is a decree by the rabbis. So you don't make a decree on a decree, right? There's a general rule like this. You don't make a gzera la gazrinan, like it says, right? So we don't make a decree on a decree. So therefore, one decree was enough, right? The fact that they decreed to read it, it's already a decree, as it is. So therefore, right, the rule is that you can read it anytime at night. But what does a smart person do, right? Don't be foolish, right? What does that mean? Try to do it as early as possible because if you wait till late, right, then you may have problems, right? You're not going to find a place where they're reading so late. Let's say you waited till like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. Where are you going to find a place that reads that at that time? You're gonna have a hard time with that. You may find it if you're lucky. If you live in a very right densely Jewish area, you may find something like that. But if not, right, you're definitely gonna come up dry. So therefore, the proper thing to do is to go right away. Don't eat dinner. Before. First, go and read. And hear the Megillah, and then eat dinner. Because once you start with dinner, and then you start having, cocktails, and right, all kinds of stuff, right, margaritas, and you're gonna fall asleep, whatever, whatever, pass out on the floor somewhere, and then you're gonna have a problem, right? So, even though you can read all night, but the proper thing to do, of course, is to read early as possible because right, that's what the rabbi said, right? Mitzvah right? If a mitzvah came to your hand, don't delay it. So meaning what? Do it right away. Don't wait. Don't procrastinate. Don't do that. Right? Do it right away. Okay. So what does a smart person do? Right? He goes, to the synagogue. They pray mincha and arvit, and right after arvit they do the Megillah. Right? So that's what you should do. You know what I mean? If you can. For those that are married, what happens is like this, right? It gets split up into two, because sometimes they need a babysitter, to watch the children. So the husband and wife can't go at the same time, so what happens is that the husband goes first, right? He goes, first prays and then does the Megillah, and then they have like a woman's reading. Let's say about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, they have a woman's reading. So the lady goes to the woman's reading, and that's how it's done. For people who need to have to watch their children, right? They need a babysitter, basically, right? They take turns, that's how they do it. That's the way it goes. Okay, very good. So yeah, that's the story, right? But the truth is, that if a person wasn't able to go to shul, we're going to talk about that, by the way, later on. But he could also read it at home. I mean, if he has no choice, that's not the best way to do it. But he can read it at home, just by himself if he wants. If there's no choice. Let's say there's no minyan, right. There's no more readings anymore. It's too late. So okay, so pull out your Megillah from the closet, right, and read it at home. Okay. One time I remember, when I was in Israel, one of my daughters, missed the reading. She wasn't able to hear it. So, I didn't have a Megillah in my house, because it cost a lot of money. I wasn't that rich at that time, So I didn't have one. It cost like, in those days it was like $500. Now it's like 1,000 probably, so they're expensive, So what happened was, right, I didn't have a Megillah, couldn't afford it, right? Poor guy, right? So what happened was that I went to my neighbor, right? He had one, and I said, "Yeah, can I buy you a Megillah? My poor daughter hasn't heard it yet. I have to read it for her." So what happened was that we came, we took the Megillah from the neighbor, and we read it at home for my daughter, right? That's what happened. So yeah, that's the way it goes. So if there's no choice, right, then you couldn't go to shul. So that's what you do, right? What else? What else can you do? Oh yeah, let's go on. So he says, then we talk about the timing, right? So what's all day? Umash katav, right? The Torah said, "Me'netzach hama ad sof hayom," right? You can read it from sunrise until the end of the day. Ve'im kira'a mish'ala amud hashachar, and if he read it after dawn, yatsa, right? He fulfills obligation. So meaning what? That lechatchila, you shouldn't read it before sunrise. But if he did so, right, after dawn, between dawn and sunrise, which is 72 minutes, right, in between, so he did fulfill his obligation. Why? Because it's considered to be daytime already, after dawn, even though it's not sunrise yet. Even though it's pitch dark outside, right? You go out, you look outside, at dawn, right? And you say, "Gee whiz, it's like still night." Like what's going on? Well, yeah, to you it may look like it's night, but according to the Torah, it's day already. It's just the problem is that your naked eye can't see the light yet. It's too small. You know what I mean? But it's there. So don't go by your naked eye, right? Go by the chart. You have a chart, good chart, and it tells you right what time is dawn. So you got to go by that. That's what it is, right? Okay. So yeah, and there are, by the way, some Ashkenazi charts, that have the dawn a little bit too early, because there was a custom in Europe, that they used to hold that dawn was 90 minutes before sunrise, But according to the Shulchan Aruch, though, it's 72 minutes, not 90 minutes, So you shouldn't really rely on that, the custom, because that custom was in Europe. But, you know, the proper thing to do is 72 minutes, So don't go crazy with 90 minutes, because 90 minutes can give you a problem. It's still according to Shulchan Aruch, it's still night. Right? Unless you're talking about the summer, right, where the day is longer. So there, it could be even 90 minutes. It's possible in the peak of the summer. But otherwise, it's not going to be like that. In the winter, for sure not, right? It's going to be like 60 minutes in the winter because the hours are very short, because the day is short, and so forth, so on. Okay, I'm not going to get into it too much. I don't think any of you guys are gonna, girls, whatever, right, are gonna what do you call it? Read after sunrise, after the dawn. I don't think you're gonna be doing that. So I won't talk about it too much. So let's go on, right? Kira'ua be'adar rishon. So now, right, we're getting into a different issue, which is, right, what about if it's a leap year, right? So you know what it is, right? When you have a leap year, you have two adars, right? One extra adar. So the question is, right, which one is the proper adar to read the Megillah and do Purim? So the rule is, right, we do the second one, the second one is the real adar. The first one is just a warm up, whatever, right? So we don't really, we don't do the Purim on the first adar. But the question is, right, what about if he did it though? So the Torah goes into a case like this, right, where he read the Megillah on the first Adar, and then he says, "Ve'achar kach ra'u le'aver hashana korin ota be'adar sheni." So what happened was, right, that in those days, right, the Bet Din used to make the leap year. Today we don't do that anymore. It's just a fixed calendar. But in those days, right, the Bet Din would sit down, then deliberate and make a leap year, whenever they saw fit to do so. Today nobody does this. We don't have the knowledge even to do this, right? So we have a fixed calendar. So every 3 or 4 years, there's like a leap year. That's what happens in our fixed calendar, right? So yeah. So what happens is that in a case like that, let's say, right, where the Bet Din used to do it, in the old days. So let's say, right, you read the Megillah in the Adar, and then the Bet Din all of a sudden decided, you know what? Let's make another Adar. Gee whiz, yeah, let's make another one. It seems like it's a proper thing to do. So now, right, you're between a rock and a hard place because you thought you read in the second Adar, right, in the proper Adar, but actually you read in the first Adar. It comes out like So the question is, did you fulfill your obligation or not? That's the question that the Torah is asking. So he says, right, that you should read it again in the next Adar. That's what you should do, because the first one, they already made it into a leap year. So, it could be that it doesn't count. So regarding this, right, says the Bet Yosef, Mishnah Perek Kam, right? It's in the Mishnah, the first Perek in the Megillah, Vav Amud Bet V'Diek Mina B'Gemara. So it learns from that, right? Deduces from in the Gemara there. Ha'le'inyan Seder Parshiot Ze V'Ze Shavin. So it says when it comes to the Parshiot, right? Those special portions that we read, we already discussed that, right? When we started these laws, that it says they're equal. In other words, there's no difference between the first Adar and second Adar. So that means what? In B'diavad, if they read those four special portions, right? Parshiot, Berishon, in the first Adar, you don't have to read it again. So regarding that, right? B'diavad, if you did so, you're okay. But regarding the Megillah, different story, right? What you got to do is do it again the next month. Okay, good. So here we see the Berek Habayit, right? So just letting you guys know, right? What is Berek Habayit? You see in the parentheses in the brackets there, Berek Habayit, it says Berek Habayit is like a gloss that was written on the Bet Yosef by Maran Bet Yosef himself. You know what I mean? He put a gloss on it. Why did he do that? Like amendments, like an amendment, right? Whatever you want to call those, right? He amended it. Why did he do that? Because towards the end of his life, when he already finished a Shulchan Aruch, he saw that there were certain things in the Bet Yosef that he omitted, or did not write properly, right? Whatever. So he came back in this work called Berek Habayit, and he corrected, those things that he omitted or he miswrote something there, right? Not the proper way. So therefore, right, the Berek Habayit is the halacha. It's like the last word of Maran Shulchan Aruch Bet Yosef. It's his last Mishnah that he wrote. So therefore, we always paskin like the Berek Habayit, even over the Bet Yosef and even over the Shulchan Aruch. That's basically what it is, because that's the last work that he wrote. So it says here like this, right? Regarding the Berek Habayit. Mani matnitin lo Tanakama velo Rabbi Eliezer, right? It brings the Gemara here. Gemara asks a question there, right, regarding what we just said. The Mishnah, right? Who is it like? Is it like the Tanakama, the first opinion, or Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, the son of Rabbi Yossi? Velo Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. So it's not right. So I'm sorry. Once, let me say that one more time. It says like this, right? That the Gemara says that our Mishnah is not like the first opinion, not like Rabbi Eliezer, and not like Rabbi Yossi bin right, Rabbi Yossi, and also not like the Rabban Shimon Gamliel. So it's not like any of these opinions. That's what the Gemara is asking. In other words, it seems like it's different from all of them. So how is that, right? Like, what's going on? Doesn't seem to match up with any of these. Umasik de matniti Rabban Shimon Gamliel. So Gemara, right, concludes there that the Gemara is that the Mishnah is the opinion of Rabban Shimon Gamliel. He de'amar afilu seder parshiot ikar el rishon kare b'sheni. So he paskins, right, that even regarding those special portions, that if you read it in the first Adar, you should come and read it again the second Adar. So in other words, it seems like we paskin that you should read this also in the second Adar as well. Repeat it again. Upasak Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, right? So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel. So Rabbi Yochanan paskins like that in the Gemara, right? And Rabbi Yochanan is very authoritative, so therefore, right, it seems like this is the halacha. Okay, very good. So, ולכן נוסחה אמיתית בדברי רבנו, so it says, therefore, the proper, right, text in רבנו, the Tur, וכן הפרשיות שעשו באדר הראשון, צריך לחזור לעשותם בשני. So, therefore, right, the proper text in the Tur should say, if you didn't do the special portion, the special portions in the first Adar, you got to do it again in the second Adar. That's the halacha. Okay. So it says this comes to exclude, right? There are books that have just the opposite text, right? Which is not correct. But he says there is a wonder here, right? Al Rabbeinu on the Tur. Why do you need to write this at all? What does that mean, right? So so he says, you know what? As we said, right? We already mentioned this. Nowadays we have a fixed calendar, so we don't. The Bet Din doesn't make the Rosh Chodesh anymore. It doesn't make leap years either, right? No leap years. They don't do that. So if that's the case, why did you need to write this halakha? It's not even practical, right? We don't do it anymore. It's not, So ask the Bedek Habayit here, right, or whatever, the Bet Yosef. Right? What's the reason why he wrote this? What do I get from that? Right? There's nothing practical I learned there. Nobody does this anymore. So he says, לא שייך למימר קראות מגילה בעד הראשון ואחר כך ראו להעביר השנה. ואפשר שכתב כן ללמדנו, so it's possible that he wrote like this in order to teach us, שאם טעו בני העיר, that if the city dwellers, right, the town dwellers, וחשבו, made a mistake, and they thought, שהייתה שנה פשוטה, that it was a regular year, wasn't a leap year. וקראו המגילה פרשיות באדר ראשון. So what happened was that they read it in the first Adar, right? They made a mistake. ואחר כך נודע להם, and then they told them, right, people, they were notified. שהיא מעוברת, that it's actually a leap year. So, in other words, they didn't know it was a leap year. They made a mistake, And then they realized, oh, gee, we did everything, We did the Megillah, we did the special parshiot. So now what's the halacha, right? So the halacha is you have to do it again, everything. Yeah. Too bad, you did it. Too bad, you made a mistake, right? What can you do? So he says, right, that so you have to do everything, right, as we said, over again. So in other words, even though, right, the rule that was written by the Tur was not practical, but you learn from there, right, to deduce something which is practical, which is the case where there was a mistake made. So the same thing would apply there, as well.
Kavod Harav, what are the rules for deduction? It depends.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
What, what are the rules for deduction? Like you know,
Deduction. Oh. Yeah, there's a special Braita, that we read if you look in the Sidur, right? I
yes.
don't know if the Ashkenazim have it, but the Sfaradim we have this. I think the Ashkenazim have it too. It's called the Braita of Rabbi Ishmael, right? Rabbi Ishmael Omer, right? B'shlosh Aser midot Torah nidreshet. So there he gives you the rules of deduction, over there in that Braita.
The 13 ones, there are 13.
Exactly, those 13 rules. Yes, yes, yes.
There's the
That's where we
Kalva,
learn. That's where we learn the rules of deduction.
and the Kalva Homer and the Gesai
Right. Those are
Rashavat,
all rules that we have. Those
Benjamin. And so on.
those rules, by the way, are from, we got them from Har Sinai, from Mount Sinai. In other words, they're all the way from Moshe Rabbeinu, they're from God. So,
Okay.
it's not something like new that was made by the rabbis or something like that, right? That's not what it is.
Okay.
These are rules that we received on Har Sinai.
Okay. Thank you so much.
But, right, here's the thing, right? Here's the catch. When we talk here in the Bet Yosef about deduction, it's not talking about those rules.
Which
Um,
rules is he talking?
you know why?
Why?
Because there's two types of deduction. There is a deduction which is written in that Braita, as we said, right, Rabbi Ishmael.
Mm-hmm.
Those are from Har Sinai. They're not based on logic. It's just a tradition that we have. You understand?
Okay.
So there's no logic in them. Like if you would try to figure out the logic in those rules, you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna be there for a long time, right? Until maybe till Mashiach comes, because you're not gonna figure it out. There's no logic there. These are
Okay.
just rules, as a tradition we received.
Even the first one, that is the Kalva Homer, Kabbalah.
Right. Even Kal Vachomer, by the way, it is somewhat logical, but it's also, not 100% logic there. There's also some, something which is above logic a little bit.
Okay.
You know, if we were going to get into those rules, by the way, you would have to spend some time, learning that stuff because
Mm-hmm.
it's a whole discipline in itself, right? I'm not going to
Yeah.
get into it with you guys, and the reason is because it's not really, I don't know if it's, it may be over people's head, a little bit, those rules, maybe a little bit too complicated. So whatever, and I don't know, the truth is we don't really need to it's not practical for us. You know why that is?
Why?
Because we can't use those rules. We don't have permission to use them.
Okay.
I mean, only the rabbis of the Talmud, as we said, right? They were able to use those rules. But once the Talmud was sealed, those rules are only now in theory, right? Not in practice.
Okay.
So meaning what? That we learn, in the Talmud how they use those rules, but we ourselves cannot use them.
Okay. Okay. We cannot apply them. No,
We
it's
cannot
not.
apply them. Yeah, well, exactly. But here and right here in the Bet Yosef, that he's talking about deduction,
Mm-hmm.
more about just logical deduction. That's based on logic. You know, uh, so it's a little bit, not exactly what we're talking about there, right? In Rabbi Ishmael, it's a different thing. Here we're just talking about just basic, human, right, rabbi logic. That a good rabbi will acquire that logic, by having experience and learning, for many years. You know what I mean? Being able to do this like that. You got to have those good yeshiva years. You learned when you were young in the yeshiva, right? And they taught you all that stuff, right? How to deduce, how to make right deductions, logical deductions, so forth and so on. This we even do today. You know what I mean? As long as you know how to do it, right? In other words, you're a pretty decent scholar, right? And that knows how to make deductions.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Because you have experience, and you've been trained. You went to yeshiva, you learned in kollel. You know your stuff. You know what I mean, more or less, right?
Okay.
So, if you're on that level, so you can make deductions also as well by yourself, because we're not talking about Rabbi Ishmael, right? That's something else. Those deductions are just history already, we don't do it anymore.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah,
Thank you.
that's right.
Thank you very
Uh,
much.
God bless. So anyway, right, as we said, this is the end of the Bet Yosef. So we're done, we just have to do Shulchan Aruch and we're finished. So let's go on here. So it says in Shulchan Aruch, Ben Ir shaya bisfina or bederech, right? If you have somebody who dwells in a town, right? In other words, unwalled, and he went to take a cruise, or he's traveling, right, somewhere, whatever it may be, right? He may be on a train, he may be on a plane. You never, God knows where he is, right? Doesn't really matter. It's all the same. Velo haya be'ado megillah. Problem is, he didn't bring a megillah with him, right? He didn't bring the megillah, right? So what's the problem? The problem is, v'hakach nizdamna lo betetvav. And then all of a sudden, right, on the 15th, he finds a megillah, right? You know, right? In the what do you call it? In Israel, when you touch down, at the airport there, which is called Ben Gurion, right? That airport, right? Which is in the town of Lod, right? Very close to Tel Aviv. They call it Tel Aviv, but it's really not in Tel Aviv. It's really in Lod, the airport, close to Tel Aviv. So anyway, right? When you get out of the plane, you get off, right? You on board. You see over there, right, that there's a synagogue there, in the airport. The truth is, that they also have a synagogue here at Kennedy, I saw. But it's not really the same thing, you know what I mean? Because the synagogue in Israel, in the airport, is like very well equipped, like so it's like, got everything there, You could probably, find the Megillah there, in that synagogue, So once you touch down, and you go to the shul there, you'll probably find the Megillah. You know. It's just you have to be careful, right? That nobody should steal it, because when you leave it out like that, right? It can be stolen, God forbid. So it's got to be guarded, whatever. But they have even Sifrei Torah there, so they read Sifrei Torah are much more expensive than Megillah, so right? That's the way it is. But it's locked, right? So you have to know there's a code or there's a key or something, whatever it is, right? So they have, so that's what happened, right? This guy was flying, on the 14th, right? So, right, the flight from Los Angeles to Tel Aviv is 18 hours. So let's say, right, he was flying on the 14th, right? And then he touched down, it's already the 15th, right? Because there's a 7-hour difference, right? Really, the truth is from Los Angeles is 10 hours. So there's a 10-hour difference between Los Angeles and Tel Aviv, right? So, he touched down and it's already the 15th. And now, right, he goes into the shul there, right? And he finds the Megillah, but it's already the 15th. So what do you do now? Right? That's the question. So yeah, something like that, right? So what's the answer, right? Kore alta betitvav. So what he's gonna do is he's gonna read it on the 15th, right? Even though, as we said, right, he's a town dweller, unwalled, right? So that's not really his day. His day is the 14th, but since we have no choice, right? So what are we gonna do? We're gonna read it on the 15th. Why is that? Because the 15th is considered to be, right, also like a Purim day, it's a Purim day. Because that's where we celebrate in Jerusalem, the walled cities, blah blah blah. So therefore, right, since it's considered to be quote unquote, right, the last Purim day, because after that, we're done. That's it, it's finished. Right, so that's the last day you can read the Megillah. So therefore, what you do is you should read the Megillah, right? Once you touch down, right, at the airport there, even though it's already the 15th and you missed your time, right? You should read it anyway, right? So what we said, right, in the Bit Yosef, that right, you should probably do this without blessing, because it's not really the right day for you. So you don't bless, just read it without blessing, right? But here the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say that, to read it without a blessing. Let's see the Mishnah Berurah, right? Our old reliable Mishnah Berurah. See what he says here. Should you bless or not? Right. So let's just see that here. Right. Yeah, so you see, the Mishnah Berurah right away jumps on that. He says, right, don't bless. Because it's not the right time. So there's a doubt, whether you're doing the right time, whatever, right? bediavad, whatever. It's something, which is a little bit forced. Right? And then he says in Mishnah Berurah, right, just like we said, he says, but from that day and onward, right? In other words, if you're getting already to the 16th, Tet Zayin, you shouldn't read it all, he says, because that's too late already, You missed it. So if you get to the 16th, that's it, right? You're done. You're cooked, right? Your goose is cooked. Nothing you can do. Right? So he also repeats that halakha that we saw in the Bet Yosef here, right? The Mishnah Berurah, which is that if you did it in the first Adar, right, and then all of a sudden you remembered, it's a leap year. There's a second Adar. So what should you do, right? Read it again, as we said, right? You got to do it. You got to read it again. And here, probably, you should probably bless, because you didn't fulfill your obligation by reading it in the first Adar. So therefore, there's no reason to avoid blessing in a case like that, You definitely are obligated to read it again. So therefore, you should bless. Right? Okay, very good. So we finished this chapter. Bezat Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue with the next chapter. Be blessed with wealth, health, happiness. Thanks for coming. And Chazak Baruch. We'll see you tomorrow, Bezat Hashem. It's not Shabbat, is it? Oh my God, no, not yet. It's too early. I hope so. Nobody's going to tell me it's Shabbat. So, what do you call it? I just want to point out to you, right, that I saw, there's one person who calls himself a rabbi, on the internet, and he wrote something about, what do you call it? What do you call it? If somebody's killed, because he was a Jew by a non-Jew, is he considered to do Kiddush Hashem, sanctify the name of God? And also, is he called holy and all these things, right? So he comes out there, this arrogant person, and starts saying, that, it's not like that, and no such a thing like that. And he says the rabbis who do it, he says, they're like, he says they're pretending to be rabbis. Very arrogant words he speaks, this rabbi, He puts things out of his mouth. He thinks he's a rabbi. I don't know. Maybe he's pretending to be a rabbi. That's the problem. Whatever he says about the others, maybe it applies to him. So he's pretending to be a rabbi. So he comes out and says, harsh words like this, that they're just doing it to kiss up to their donors, he says, Come on, give me a break, So what I did was, when I saw that he wrote that, I saw that he's speaking in an arrogant way, and also it's just incorrect, not correct. So I looked up, the sources, and I wrote to refute him, because he's just like spreading all kinds of nonsense, like he thinks his own personal opinion, is the halakha. It doesn't work like that. You have to bring sources, you have to bring books, you have to bring, just don't say things, out of the blue, whatever. Doesn't do the proper research, and then he criticizes the other rabbis, even though he himself should be criticized. So look at my new post, right? You're going to see it, right? It's already there. Facebook, right? WhatsApp.
Rabbi, can you please repeat the initial statement that he made?
He says, like, very harsh words, like really out of place. He says, number one, he says these people who say these things are pretending to be a rabbi. Number one, he says. Number one. Number two, he says they're kissing up to their donors. What is this? How do you talk like that about, like people, without doing the proper research? At least first, do research, look into things, By the way, that's, one thing that I learned from my rabbi, my rabbi, he always warned us about this. He used to say, don't just like say things from your mind without researching things, Don't just present people, with all kinds of, false things, misleading information without first researching the topic. Don't think everything because your IQ is over 100. It's a triple-digit IQ you got. So what? It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that everything you're gonna say is was said by God on Har Sinai. You know what I mean? You have to research.
So this was what did he say? This was his opinion.
He made like a little reel. He made like a little reel, that I saw.
Uh-huh.
It really, like upset me, that he speaks this way about, about people. He's very arrogant, and also he's telling people the wrong thing, which is wrong. Also, misrepresenting the halakha, which is considered to be a very big sin, by the way. It says in Shulchan Aruch.
Again, I apologize.
Person who passes halakha, he's not on a level to do so. He says in Shulchan Aruch, he's a rasha, he's a fool, right? He's arrogant, and that's what he is. That's exactly what he is.
Can you please, I apologize again. Can you please repeat the initial topic that he opined on,
Talking about, somebody who was killed because he was a Jew, like is he considered to be sanctifying the name of God? Right? And is he considered to be holy? So I brought the sources. It's very simple. Go and see them. And check them by yourself. If you don't, right? There you go.
Was he saying that they are not, and you're saying they are?
Right.
Yeah,
He's saying that no such a thing like that. He thinks that whatever he doesn't know, no such a thing. Just because he doesn't know.
Okay, but that's
You can't be like that. It's like,
okay, Rabbi. I think what David's asking is he saying that people who die at the hands of non-Jews he's saying they're not?
Yeah, they're just, it's just, a regular, regular murder, like,
Okay, and you're saying that there are sources that say that they are sanctifying the name of God?
Of course, there are many sources, as you're gonna see, right? Look at my post.
Okay, I will, but does it necessarily mean, like, do they have to be dying for being Jewish or dying for being observing?
You know how it is, right? That in Israel, right? The terrorists, that kill people over there, they're killing them because they're Jews. That's what it is, right? I mean, obviously. They're not killing them because they're they stole their sugar, or they stole their parking spot, that's not the reason why they're killing them.
But somebody who dies at the hand of a non-Jew because they're being, I don't know, they're being robbed or just it's just
right. So that's a little bit different, because he didn't kill him because he was a Jew. He just, he was hungry, he wanted to eat something, so he needed like $10, whatever. He killed him because of that.
Okay, so there is a distinction. It's not we're not
talking about that.
You're not automatically sanctifying the name of God just because you died at the hands of a non-Jew.
Right. In other words, just because the fact that you were murdered doesn't mean you sanctify the name of God. But if you were murdered because you're a Jew, then that is already considered to be yes.
I see. Thank you.
God bless. Laila Tov. All the best.
Kavod Harav, thank you so much.
God bless.